deadline has come and passed for your Toronto Raptors, and since I've last uploaded, they've played 2 games in which they've won 1 and lost 1. They have made 2 moves, which no one really expected, to be completely honest, and they may have not been as aggressive as many had anticipated, but this is why I feel like the Toronto Raptors could potentially have had a very good trade deadline. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Raptors Rundown. I'm your host, Yusuf Abbas, and as you can tell, I am absolutely so tired right now. My sleeping schedule has been quite literally running on like 3 hours of sleep in the past 3 days because of 1, the trade deadline. I stayed up way longer than I should have because it is a tradition for me. 2, because I had a exam on Friday, which absolutely destroyed my sleep schedule even more. And number 3, I feel like I overslept last night, and I don't know if this happens with many of you, but when I oversleep, I become even more tired the next day. So I'm literally running on fumes right now, but I have to get this episode out because I've missed 2 goddamn games of the Raptors, which we will talk about on this episode, and it's going to be an extra long episode. So buckle in, grab your favorite snack. You know the drill. The first game, the Toronto Raptors lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves 128-26 in another game where we absolutely blew the lead. And again, I would review every single game, but I feel like this episode would be like 40 minutes long because what was there to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves game? Because we went up by as much as 18 points in this game. We were running. We were looking good. We actually led in this game for 97% of the time. And like the game against the Knicks where we blew a 15-point lead, like the game against the Magic where we blew, I believe, like a 17-point lead. This game we blow an 18-point lead and lose to the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that had not won in Toronto since, I believe, 2004. And then you had Ant Aura farming after the game talking about how they ain't beat us since Bruce Lee died, and he was shushing the crowd because we don't know how to take care of the goddamn ball. And like many of our games, I feel like it came down to the fact that we weren't able to hit shots and we weren't able to respond to their punches. I feel like in the past 3 losses for us, these teams have shown that they can battle adversity, but we haven't been able to punch them back after they punch us in the face, which is so frustrating. And I feel like this is really scary for me to admit, but I feel like this is the thing of frauds where they can go out to these incredible leads, but any slight bit of adversity, they crumble. And we have crumbled 3 times in a row, 3 games where we very easily should have won. And in this game, it was everybody. Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, Colin Murray-Bowles were incredible in this game. Emmanuel quickly ended up with 23 points. I thought he should have shot the ball more. I feel like it's become the opposite with Emmanuel quickly, where he's not taking nearly enough shots when he's finally starting to shoot well, but then when he's not shooting well, he's trying to take as many shots as he can to get him to shoot well. But Emmanuel quickly, I want you to shoot more when you're shooting well, and I want you to shoot less when you're not shooting well. It's very simple to me. Another aspect that absolutely screwed us in this game was the turnover battle. We pride ourselves on winning the turnover battle every single time. We ended up losing it this time. We turned the ball over 13 times, and they turned it over only 10. And that included 2 incredibly crucial turnovers, both by RJ Barrett. Another huge turnover by Jamal Shead in the final moments. I have no idea what he was doing on that play. Very bad, very unfortunate game from Jamal Shead, who has been a very steady person in clutch time. I don't know what happened in this game because it seemed like he was panicking, rushing his decisions a little bit. It did not look like the Jamal Shead that we have seen close many games for us with that double guard lineup. And to be quite frank, I would have rather had Jamal Shead and RJ Barrett on the bench. I understand we're putting Jamal Shead for defense, but I mean, Anthony Edwards was absolutely torching us. And they did such a good job of getting the switch of RJ Barrett onto Anthony Edwards. He had a quiet game up until that last quarter where he ended up having 30 points in the night. So really big game from Anthony Edwards. We actually did a pretty good job on the rebounding front. We only lost that battle by 5 rebounds and against a really good rebounder, Rudy Gobert. And as a team that doesn't really have a proper center right now, I thought we did a pretty good job. But another frustrating game. But luckily, as I say, the best thing about back-to-backs is that you get an immediate opportunity to rectify that loss. Because in the next game, the Toronto Raptors played the Chicago Chicago Bulls and beat them 123 to 107. And I'll say this, it feels like Brandon Ingram literally took it to heart. In the game against the Timberwolves, there were 2 plays down the stretch where Scottie Barnes got the ball, attacked the rim, and then kicked it out to 2 wide open threes by, I believe, Jamal Shed and Sadr Mamkilishvili. And those ended up being really crucial possessions that we wasted because our players, our supporting cast, weren't able to hit shots. In this game, Brandon Ingram didn't let that happen because he was taking every single shot. He was aggressive at finding his mid-range game, and he actually ended up having 33 points in a game where we very easily, it felt like a little bit of a trap game. I know I say that about every single game that we're supposed to win, but it really did because in this game, Gushon Yabusele couldn't miss. Anthony Simons turned the clock back to his Portland days. Jaden Ivey had a good debut, and it was exciting for the Chicago Bulls because these were 3 players that, you know, felt like a little bit of throw-ins. Now you might be thinking about bringing Jaden Ivey back and having him a part of this core future. Maybe even bringing back Anthony Simons, hopefully on a cheaper contract than this. Gushon Yabusele might be a little bit cooked, but that's beside the point. They have so many guards right now. We'll talk a little bit about their trade deadline on the podcast episode that we are hopefully recording this weekend. We'll have it out to you guys soon. But yeah, honestly, all things considered, pretty impressive game from the Chicago Bulls. They ended up shooting like 37% on the night, and to me it felt like they were shooting 50%. I felt like they were hitting every single 3, and I think they were shooting an insane percentage from 3 because up until the fourth quarter, because in the fourth quarter, that's when they just started hitting, that's when they started bricking everything, but up until that point, they were hitting every single shot possible. It was insane. But yeah, in a game without Josh Giddey, many of their acquisitions, they were the most active team this deadline, making 7 trades and netting no first round picks, by the way. Shout out AK, not the best asset management, but I'm happy he picked the direction. Congratulations to Chicago Bulls fans. Once again, from the Raptors perspective, I gotta give a shout out to Sandro as well. He shot 4 for 6 from 3 tonight. Great performance. He was good in both games. I feel like he's finally starting to find his stride. I believe in the past 5 or 6 games, he's averaging 15 plus points, which is huge off the bench. A bench that has really struggled finding some offense. But yeah, took care of business. A little bit nervous. They ended up tying the game at 76 in the third quarter, and that was when we absolutely blew them out. Went on a crazy run, and how quickly spearheaded that run. Shout out to him. The box score to me didn't do him justice on how well he played, but yeah, shout out to Emmanuel Quickley on, once again, it feels like he's stringing together some pretty good performances, and I know that contract will never be good, but to me, Emmanuel Quickley is finally starting to find his stride and providing the things that the Toronto Raptors paid him for. It can be an overpay of a contract, but that doesn't mean Emmanuel Quickley is playing bad at times. You know what I mean? That's all I have to talk about for the games that I missed. I'm sorry, guys. I won't miss them again. I really do apologize. But now let's talk a trade deadline. The Toronto Raptors made 2 moves this deadline, one of which was the move that we all expected, dumping Ochai Agbaji to duck the tax. Shout out Ochai Agbaji. You know, I made a tweet that he was a good dude, but he wasn't really good dude. He's not the best NBA player. Good guy. Always worked hard. I wish he had a similar season to what it was last season, but yeah, shout out Ochai Agbaji. And I will say, we finally have our answer to my question at the start of the season on who would lose the shooting guard battle. Grady Dick and Jacoby Walter escaped the deadline. Grady Dick, I felt like Jacoby Walter was pretty safe. Grady Dick was a name that was coming up a lot. He is going to be extension eligible this offseason. So a lot of talk about Grady Dick and the poor performances. It seems that the Toronto Raptors still have faith in him. Jacoby Walter is a little bit younger, and I feel like he's been a lot better than Grady Dick this season, but he survived the deadline. Another person that survived the deadline, Jakob Poeltl. A lot of news, a lot of rumors coming around about who the Toronto Raptors were going after. We know confirmed, and I felt like the most active discussions were for Sacramento's Jakob Poeltl. Now, the talking point, it halted. The players were all right. We were probably cool with either sending Jakob Poeltl to Sacramento or rerouting him again, but the talking point stalled when the Toronto Raptors were not willing to attach any first-round picks in the deal. Now, I don't know what Sacramento was on, if they were asking for multiple first-round picks. I don't believe Domantas Sabonis was worth that at all, and you guys know my stance on it. I was very happy that this deal didn't happen for my Raptors, because honestly, I don't think it moved the needle nearly enough that it needs to for us to join that other tier of contenders. Raptors, and it's just not worth adding those first-round picks in a deal like this. But the Toronto Raptors did address a thing that a lot of Raptor fans wanted. They got their backup center. Now, was it a 7-footer? Nope, it wasn't even that. It wasn't even anyone that we were rumored to be going after. We ended up going after Golden State Warriors Trace Jackson Davis. We traded a second-round pick, the Lakers' second-round pick, for Trace Jackson Davis, and it ended up being a move that I was really caught by surprise. Now, I will be the first to admit, in the moment, I was a little bit disappointed because there were quite a few other, other backup centers that I really wanted that we didn't end up getting. But let's review it first of all. Trace Jackson Davis, what does he do? He is an interior scorer, fits our defense, he provides a solid amount of rim protection and rebound that we really needed, and he is a very good passing big, and his decision making is really advanced for a young player. What does Trace Jackson Davis struggle at? He is an undersized big, his spacing is a real concern, and he's not really an offensive hub, which if our bench is struggling, I was sort of looking for us to make a move of bringing someone who can provide more scoring and provide more offense to our team. How does he help us? He sets screens really well. I feel like Emmanuel quickly was really missing those Jakob Poeltl screens, and that was a big reason to why he was struggling in many of these games. He doesn't require the ball at all, and his athleticism on lobs is going to be really helpful. It feels like we haven't had an actual lob threat. The only real lob threat I would consider was Colin Murray-Boyles, and even that, he didn't really get up there. So it's great to hear in interviews RJ Barrett throwing lobs to Trace Jackson Davis in practice. I feel like that is going to be a go-to move for our bench, hopefully to provide us a little bit of that punch that we were missing at the rim. Now, it is a cheap big. The reason I'm a lot more happy about this move after considering it isn't even because of the player. I know what you're getting from Trace Jackson Davis, but to be honest, hearing about the price of some of these other backup bigs, Goga Bitadze going for a first-round pick, you are out of your goddamn mind. Day'Ron Sharpe, I understand a little bit more, but I still would not give up that price. I'm happy the Toronto Raptors were very hesitant for once in their life about not giving up a first-round pick. Finally, it seems like they've learned their lesson after giving up first-round picks for Thaddeus Young and a first-round pick for Jakob Poeltl, who is now a contract that we are struggling to get off of our books. I also realized I technically didn't mention Chris Paul is technically still a Toronto Raptor. Bobby Webster said that he's going to do the best interest of our team and Chris Paul. He's already talked about how he doesn't have to report. I'm shocked by the amount of people that thought Chris Paul was going to join our team. I knew instantly what this meant, and he was not coming to Toronto on his last year of his career, bro. But yeah, apparently he's going to get waived whenever Bobby Webster feels right. I assume it's whenever we believe we need to open up a roster spot, maybe convert one of the two-way guys. I don't really see any of the two-way guys getting converted at this point in the season. But yeah, I think Chris Paul, technically a Toronto Raptor right now, and it will be hilarious to find out. That'll be a crazy trivia question. Toronto Raptors being the last team Chris Paul ever played for. But the trade deadline has come and gone. What would I grade it for the Toronto Raptors? Now, they fixed their issues of not having a backup big, and they ducked the luxury tax by trading Ochai Agbaji. What did they not do? They are still the 26th ranked three-point shooting team, and they did not trade for a single shooter other than technically Chris Paul, but he's not reporting for us. They also still have defensive concerns with RJ Barrett at our 2, and we technically still have the issue of Jakob Poeltl's health being a question. So overall, I would give this a B-. I told everybody that the biggest thing that we needed to do this deadline, beyond the backup big, which was something that I still thought we needed to do, was getting some level of shooting. Now, this deadline could become even higher, even up to like an A, if we go and sign a free agent shooter. Cameron Thomas is right there for the taking, and I feel like we can provide such a good pitch to him to bring him onto the team as a contender and as a playoff team for him to actually try and prove that he's worth a contract next season. Last thing that I need to talk about, it is actually good news, because in our next game against the Indiana Pacers, we will finally, most likely, potentially have Jakob Poeltl back. And if it's not against the Indiana Pacers, it is going to be against the Detroit Pistons 3 days later. Darko Rakovic said he wanted to bring Jakob Poeltl back before the All-Star break. He's fully practiced. It seems like everything's going good finally for him, and he is probably most likely going to be back in the lineup. I can't say we have a full lineup because Matt quickly apparently tweaked his ankle in practice. Apparently it's a little bit mild. He's questionable going into the next game. Trayce Jackson-Davis is going to be available, so we may finally have a full Toronto Raptors team against a really struggling Indiana Pacers team. But yeah, this is the turning point. If Jakob Poeltl cannot stay healthy at this point, I really raise questions on whether or not he will be available for the playoffs. If a guy like Trayce Jackson-Davis is not performing to the level that he needs to, I really question if he comes back. If we do not shoot the ball at a level that we need to, I really question whether or not Bobby Webster lets us go into the playoffs with this without going after any shooter, which, to be quite honest, I kind of hope we shoot bad so that Bobby Webster doesn't live in this deluded world where he thinks that we are a good three-point shooting team. There's a ton of potential people out there, and there's going to be more that eventually get waived. Dalen Terry's a name that I'm seeing around. I've seen Chris Middleton potentially be bought out. I've seen a lot of people. Cam Thomas is right there. So I beg Bobby Webster to at least make one move for a good three-point shooting. But that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching this very long Raptors Rundown episode. If you did enjoy, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys in the next episode of the Raptors Rundown.